history and geography.
The Western Roman Empire fell in 476 CE due to invading Germanic tribes. The mighty Roman Empire had already been divided into Western and Eastern empires in 395 CE, and its capital had moved 800 miles east from Rome to the Greek city of Byzantium. The city would become known as Constantinople after the emperor Constantine, who made it the new capital in 330 CE. Byzantium would remain as the name of the entire Eastern Empire. For nearly 1,000 years after the collapse of the Western Empire, the Byzantium Empire and its flourishing capital would carry on the glory of Rome.
And now,
Roman leaders had divided the empire largely due to difficulties in communication and administration between the eastern and the troubled western parts of the empire. The two regions were quite different. The eastern half of the empire had many cities, great trade, and wealth. The western half was more rural and agricultural and not nearly as wealthy. These differences became more pronounced after the fall of Rome. The capital, Constantinople, had been constructed to be a new Rome, and from then on, Constantinople's population and power grew, while Rome declined. At its height, Constantinople was home to around 1 million people. The city's language was Greek.
Kalimera.
But traders and visitors spoke many languages. The city's streets bustled with business, and ships crowded the city's harbor. The location was selected since it stood at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, and the many sea and overland trade routes linking east and west. This location helped make the city and the empire fabulously wealthy. The site was also easy to defend since it was surrounded on 3 sides by water, and constructed walls and fortifications made invasion by land or sea difficult. Interestingly, rulers in the East continued to see themselves as emperors for all of Rome. The citizens thought of themselves as sharing the Roman tradition, but few spoke Latin anymore. In 527, a Byzantine nobleman named Justinian
Just want to tell you guys how excited I am about starting work here at Walmart.
No, not Justin, the guy that works at a Walmart. Emperor Justinian, who succeeded his uncle to the throne of the Eastern Empire. Under Justinian's absolute rule, the Byzantine Empire's military expanded the borders to reclaim much of the territory that Rome had lost, winning back parts of North Africa, Italy, and Spain. Back in the capital, Justinian launched the most ambitious public building program ever seen in the Roman world. And that's saying something, since the Romans were master builders. He rebuilt the crumbling fortifications of Constantinople, with the workers constructing a 14-mile stone wall along the city's coastline, and repaired the massive fortifications along its western land border. Justinian's most long-lasting influence may be his systematic body of law. Justinian set up a panel of legal experts to create a single, uniform code now known as the Justinian Code. After its completion, the code consisted of 4 parts.
1.
The code contained nearly 5,000 Roman laws that were still considered useful for the Byzantine Empire.
2.
The digest quoted and summarized the opinions of Rome's greatest legal thinkers about the laws.
3.
The Institutes was a textbook that told law students how to use the laws.
And 4.
The new laws presented legislation passed after 534 CE. This code served the Byzantine Empire for another 900 years and became the basis for many legal codes in the Western world. Byzantine families valued education, specifically classical learning. The modern world owes Byzantine scholars a huge debt for preserving Greco-Roman culture. In many of the great works of ancient Greece and Rome, citizens could enjoy free entertainment at the Hippodrome, which offered wild chariot races and performance acts. The Hippodrome, from Greek words meaning horse and racecourse, held 60,000 spectators. Fans of the different teams formed rowdy gangs named for the colors worn by their heroes. In 532 CE, 2 rival fan groups, the Blues and the Greens, sparked week-long citywide riots called the Nika Rebellion, because the mob cried Nika, or victory, which left much of the city in ruins. Both sides were angry with the government, since they felt that city officials had been too severe in putting down a previous riot of Hippodrome fans. The fans packed the Hippodrome and demanded the overthrow of Justinian. This would be like if the New York Yankees fans and New York Mets fans rioted demanding the removal of the mayor of New York. Things got ugly, so Justinian considered fleeing during the Nika Rebellion, but his wife, Empress Theodora, urged him to stay and fight. As her husband's steely advisor, Theodora had immense power and convinced Justinian to remain in the capital. The army eventually broke the riots and slaughtered about 30,000 rebels. The city was trashed from the riots, so Justinian was determined to rebuild the city on a grander scale. The crowning glory of this construction was the Hagia Sophia Church, which means Holy Wisdom in Greek. A church of the same name had been destroyed in the riots. Visitors hailed the rebuilt Hagia Sophia as the most splendid church in the Christian world. It's now a mosque, but we'll get to that later. After Justinian's death in 565, the empire suffered countless setbacks. The first crisis actually began before Justinian's death. It was a disease that resembled what we now know as the bubonic plague. This horrifying illness hit Constantinople in the later years of Justinian's reign. The plague probably arrived on ships infested with rats. Historians estimate that in 542 CE, the worst year of the plague, 10,000 people were dying every day. The illness broke out repeatedly until around 700, when it finally faded. By that time, it had destroyed a huge percentage of the Byzantine population. From the very start of its rise to power, the Byzantine Empire faced constant challenges from foreign enemies in all directions, including an invasion by Christian crusaders in 1204 CE. Slowly, the Byzantine Empire shrank under the impact of these foreign attacks. By 1350, it was reduced to the tip of Anatolia and a strip of the Balkans. Yet thanks to its walls, its navy, and its strategic location, Constantinople held out for another 100 years. Finally, the city fell to the Ottoman Turks in 1453. But there's more! In Part 2 of the Byzantine Empire,